included. But yes, he literally wrote, "It's time to hold American elites accountable for their abuses." What about the past however many years, 8 years I think it was, when you were literally in office in a major U.S. city and had the perfect ability to do just that? Like, unbelievable. Unbelievable stuff there from Mayor Rahm Emanuel. All right, so yeah, for those who have any familiarity with Emanuel's background, a former investment banker turned Democratic Party operative, turned centrist architect, turned presidential chief of staff, turned mayor known for prioritizing the wealthiest over the working class residents. Such an article supremacist from this author is preposterous. Still, it's kind of worth really getting into why Emanuel's foray into becoming a serious pundit is so abhorrent. Emanuel corrected his analysis that the 2016 election illustrated how fed up American voters are with elites. Trump won by riding a wave of this this anger to the White House, whereas Hillary Clinton represented the very system of elite supremacy. Many voters blamed for stacking the cards against them. But if Clinton was successfully painted as an avatar for this bias system, Emanuel, for many years, in many ways, has also been its guru. After all, Emanuel, who, while serving the Clinton administration, helped write NAFTA, the trade agreement which fueled offshoring of jobs, wage stagnation, upward redistribution of income, and the collapse of the U.S. manufacturing sector. He similarly helped push through welfare reform, legislation that spiked extreme poverty, and cut off a lifeline for millions of working-class Americans, as well as the 1994 crime bill, which incited the mass incarceration crisis that we are still dealing with the remnants of today. After leaving the White House in 1998, Emanuel entered the world of investment banking, where, over the course of 4 years, he made a staggering $16 million, more than 10 times what an average American will earn in their entire life. During the time as head of the DCCC in the late 2000s, that was rough, Emanuel focused on pushing the Democratic Party further to the right, recruiting conservative blue dog Democrats who helped to implement austerity, deregulate Wall Street, and oppose healthcare expansion. Later, while serving as President Obama's chief of staff, Emanuel took a hard line against union workers during the auto bailout and worked diligently to convince President Barack Obama to not pursue Obamacare. A plan, well, far from perfect, obviously did ultimately provide health care coverage to millions of Americans. He was against. This man was literally against Obamacare. Like, that's pretty insane. I didn't know that. Wow. That's kind of crazy. As mayor of Chicago, Emanuel has continued his lifelong project of advancing corporate-friendly policies while ignoring the needs and demands of the poor and politically unconnected. So, I mean, honestly, it's kind of interesting. He's like, as soon as they can't help anymore, screw the rich. That's some interesting stuff. That's very interesting stuff, I have to say. Like, that's how we, like, it's not the best way to do it, but it's Rahm Emanuel, class conscious, who knows? No, but honestly not. But see, he's really done this to quite a T. Some of the things he did were closing public schools and mental health clinics, oversaw a police department rife with abuse, fought public sector unions, lavished corporate giants with tax breaks while raising regressive fines and fees, privatized public services, presided over horrific levels of gun violence, and locked community groups and neighborhood leaders out of democratic decision-making in favor of his friends in high finance and corporate America. This is just making this article seem like more and more of a joke with every single solitary word. So in other words, Rahm Emanuel represents the very system of elite governance that he blames in his Atlantic article for creating our current political crisis, which should make us very suspect of the political solutions that he proposes. Like, and the fact that the zero amount of self-awareness that this guy must have to push this BS is frankly incredible. How? I don't get it. So what does Emanuel actually say will help America out of our status quo? Perhaps reining in the banking and financial systems that have wreaked havoc upon our economy, or provide social programs like universal health care and a jobs guarantee that would help lift millions out of poverty and provide a safety net for struggling families? Nope. popular programs like Medicare for All breaking up large financial institutions, providing guaranteed employment, are being embraced by a number of 2020 Democratic candidates, such as Bernie and Elizabeth Warren. But Emanuel, instead of using his new perch as a columnist to quote-unquote stand up for justice, so pretty much, again, it seems to be that he wants to propose no significant policy here. So he uses his new perch as a columnist, writes Jacobin, to preach empty bromides about justice and standing up for the middle class interests and values. In fact, Emanuel says he doesn't think embracing bold new policies is the answer, dismissively stating that every time Democrats look at a problem, they think of a program. On one point, Emanuel is crystal clear, saying the answer certainly isn't socialism. In his view, a more egalitarian politics that confronts market fundamentalism head-on just amounts to more powerful bureaucracy. Such slights as a left-wing approach to governing are nothing new, but it is telling that Emanuel feels the need to decry a socialist turn in the Democratic Party. Because, there's really one of two ways he could go with this. He could either say what he's doing now, or he could say that, I support these socialist ideals, even after fighting against them his whole career, and it's really hard to decide which one would be worse, and make him look worse. I think it's honestly this one, actually. All right. We are now going to turn to the Democratic 2020 presidential race. A lot of stuff going on right now. Joe Biden, or as Trump likes to say, Joe Biden, has built an early lead in the month since he entered the presidential campaign, confidently projecting himself as the Democratic frontrunner and candidate best positioned to defeat Trump. But beneath the surface of a seemingly placid race is a much more volatile contest, as a series of primaries within the primary unfold along lines that reflect some of the most animating forces in the Trump era: race, gender, and ideology. With the historically large field of 23 candidates apparently now set, Senator Kamala Harris and Cory Booker, both African American, are competing with Biden and other candidates for support of the black voters. Pete Buttigieg and Beto O'Rourke, who are both under 50, are vying for the mantle of generational change. Senator Elizabeth Warren is encroaching on Bernie Sanders' support from the left wing, and 6 women are making the case that it's long past time for a female president. As the first debates loom next month and candidates begin to test initial attacks on Biden and one another, these miniature races will help clarify who might emerge as the most formidable alternative to the former vice president, who right now does seem to be the man on top. Not always as convincing as you may think, in my opinion, because just some of the polls can be really heavily misleading. And because they mostly talk to older voters with landlines, and that's not where Bernie's getting most of his support. They oversample older voters to a very large degree, which can be very, very problematic in terms of actually really getting support. You're gonna, it's gonna be a real fight to turn out these older voters or these younger voters. But if he's able to do that, Bernie he will win the primary, especially in Midwestern states. So that's the primary, I think, is definitely gonna be the hardest for him, because it's gonna be more of a push, I think, to unite against Trump and the Democratic Party. But while the elites still have Joe Biden open as their option, they will do anything, absolutely anything, to protect him as that option. I think it's very, very clear. They made that very clear. We covered on the show before the kind of dinner meetings that they have to kind of figure out how they can game this out, to have Joe Biden be the nominee. But when it comes down to it, they're going to have to realize that Bernie is the best opportunity for the party. But he's going to have to earn it, that's for sure. All right, we're going to keep an eye on you. Keep an eye on that 2020 race very, very closely. But now we turn to another great Jacobin article about Bernie's millions and why the cuckooing and the tut-tutting from his opponents is ridiculous. So it's turns out even Democratic Socialist authors can rake in cash. CNBC gushes. It's hypocrisy, squeals Fox Business, where Cabot Phillips says of Bernie Sanders, he's gone on to reign against 1%, the millionaire-billionaire class. Now he's firmly planted in the 1%. All of this manufactured indignation stems from Sanders' release of 10 years of tax returns in April, resulting in the revelation that royalties from 3 books caused his income to spike recently. Now Politico runs The Secret of Bernie's Millions, a cover story with a graphic of Bernie superimposed over a money tree, which is hilarious, given that he's probably one of the poorest, if not the poorest, politicians running in the race. I mean, at least, certainly he's quite a share of wealth, less wealthy than Booker, Biden, Harris, all those people. And there's no cover stories on them, which is very telling. But tellingly, this is not resulted in the media outcry about tropes of anti-Semitic greed, in contrast to the condemnation of Ilhan Omar a few months ago. The 77-year-old self-described democratic socialist, Michael Kruse, writes in Politico, is a 3-home-owning millionaire with a net worth approaching at least $2 million, taking into account his publicly outlined assets and liabilities, along with the real estate he owns outright. In a strict bottom-line sense, Sanders has become one of those rich people whom he has so unrelentingly railed. And I think here's the telling part. Here's the telling part that makes me kind of hand-wave this problem, is the fact that he has not changed his rhetoric, even as he has gotten to be wealthy, a little bit more wealthy than he's used to being. He's not changed that rhetoric a little bit. He still fights for those people. And, I mean, if you got... to me, it doesn't matter how rich you are. In my opinion, one of the best presidents, one of the most socialist presidents we've ever had, FDR, he was incredibly, this is not my opinion, it's fact, he was incredibly wealthy, but still found a way to make socialist programs work for America, and they're incredibly popular today. New Deal, Social Security, like that is huge stuff that our country would not have been able to thrive without. It came from a president who had relatively socialist ideas, and guess what? He was incredibly rich. So that's why I don't really care about this. It's very stupid. But, the champion of the underclass and castigator of the 1% has found himself in the socio-economic penthouse of his rhetorical boogeyman. In a strict bottom-line sense, this is rubbish, though, because Bernie's net worth did not make him part of the 1%, not even close. Apparently Bernie and Jane's household net worth, a term that simply means total household assets with debt subtracted, is, according to Politico, at least $2 million. Is that kind of a weasel way of saying they have less than $2 million? Yes, it is. The Sanders have a couple $100,000 in the bank, some stocks and bonds of Jane's, and 3 houses, reported Politico. Granted, they're affluent. I don't have a problem with that. I don't really care. He's not gonna start confiscating assets of just normal people out in the street. It's not his policy to do that. But consider that it takes a net worth of $5 million for Wall Street advisors to consider a household of high net worth, and $30 million to warrant the phrase ultra high net worth. The Sanders aren't really that rich. The actual breakpoint for 1% net worth is $10 million. So 10 times more than what Sanders has right now, $10.3 million. So, it's a little bit more than approaching at least $2 million. The average net worth of 1% is skewed far higher by the likes of Bill Gates, $91.9 billion in rising. So, Sanders is a true outlier, a senator whose net worth does not qualify him for the top 1%. He would need more than triple his net worth just to make the list of top 50 richest congresspeople. Come on, Bernie, you gotta start making that money. Making the money. No, I'm kidding. Does Sanders' household clear the top 5%? No, the breakpoint there is $2 million, 2.3 million, where Sanders has at least approaching $2 million. Bernie and Jane do make the top 10% with the breakpoint of $1.1 million. Sanders is not impoverished, to be sure. They have 3 houses. One was Jane's before they were married. They've owned it jointly in Burlington since 1998. Another is in Washington, logically enough for him to represent the people of Vermont in Congress, which he has done since 1990. They also have a vacation home on Lake Champlain to host their grandchildren. So, I mean, it doesn't seem that crazy. It seems like they just wrote a lot of books and got rich, and it's really stupid. And Politico should stop making borderline anti-Semitic cartoons about it. That's my opinion. All right. Thank you so much for listening to the show today. We are out of here. We hope to see you soon. See you next weekend on Newsflash for Newsflash 313. Hope to see you then. Or is it 314? I'm not sure.